What's up, guys? If you aren't already, follow me on all my social medias and go to Facebook and search Beyond the Forbidden or at Beyond the Forbidden. Go to Instagram, same thing, search Beyond the Forbidden or at Beyond the Forbidden. Go to Twitter, search Beyond the Forbidden TV or at Forbidden_TV. And also, if you're watching this on other platforms other than YouTube, just go to YouTube and search Beyond the Forbidden TV and subscribe. Also, Peter BADWOLF, he helps me a lot on my behind the scenes, and he's my Facebook page manager. Go to his YouTube, search BADWOLF66, and also his other channel, BADWOLF Gamer, and also his Twitter page, BADWOLF66, at BADWOLF66. The O is a 0, and I'll give the links in the description below. And thank you very much for tuning in, and enjoy the show.
Remember, I've been doing this really full time for about 30 years, and I've been calling it the coming great deception. I've been warning of it. I've been, flailing my arms wildly, books and DVDs and, everything else. And shameless plug, but we're about to release number 3 in our ongoing UFO series. This is we call it Close Encounters. And I just finished doing the lead-in today where we are on the 11th rung of the ladder of disclosure. No one knows how many rungs there are before full disclosure. But this changes everything, and people really don't get it. They don't understand that when they show up, when extraterrestrial, when ET really show up with the craft and the entity coming out of the craft, and the entire planet comes to a halt. That's number one. Everything stops. You remember when they light up the grid, the powers that be, the last time they really lit up the grid was COVID. The time before that, in my opinion, would be the Fukushima disaster, when everyone on the planet watched in real time as the tidal wave came in. Well, it's been years after Fukushima, and so what did they trot up then was the whole COVID thing, and that was it. The entire planet focused on the Wuhan virus. That was it, and it was lockstep. We're all in together. Well, when they show up, and they will show up at some point, this cat and mouse game has gone on. And like I said earlier, we're on the 11th rung, in my opinion, of the ladder of disclosure, up and up and up and up it goes. I mean, the fact that Brett Baer said a couple of months ago that women who have been abducted by UFOs become pregnant. That's my wheelhouse. That's what I've been, railing against for decades. All the books, everything else talks about this. There is a hybrid program going on. We had an interview. It's actually in the 3rd film, and this woman is riding up an escalator while someone is coming down like this. So she's like this, and she notices this man, very tall, very thin, abnormally tall, abnormally thin, and he's got a hoodie on. The hoodie's like well over his face like this, really covering it. And as she goes by, she kind of leans over and kind of looks up at him like this, because she's going up, he's coming down. So she's got to, because his head's like this. So face to face, you're not going to see him, but she's below him. So she looks up and she sees an elongated gray face, not human, with black eyes that go like this. And when the entity realizes it's been outed, totally freaks out. The face goes malevolent, dark, angry. And, I'm a student of body language. This woman, it's visceral, and she is telling the truth. And she carries that image around with her years later. What do you do when you see something like that? We have a show called Supernatural Confrontations. And I had a gentleman on a while back, just a, straight up guy, not into the paranormal, not into the UFOs, just straight up guy, okay? And he's going out to lunch. He's got a buddy in the truck, and they pull into like an Arby's type place, all right? Pulling out the window, they order the stuff, go up to the second window. We all know how it works, right? And he's going to he pays for the stuff, get in his bag. He gets the one bag, pays for everything, gets the bag, goes like this and gives it to his friend. He turns back the other way, looks up, and the lady's face has shapeshifted. Half
Shapeshifted,
of it
yeah.
is human, the other half is alien. And they look at each other, and he goes, gets the bag, and she takes off. She just takes off, covers her face like this, and takes off. They're walking amongst us.
Well,
So that's what drives me.
why is that, LA? Because that really wasn't my next question, but I guess we can touch on your latest research and then tie a little bit into the bloodlines, the hybridization and the Nephilim. But it as you may agree, this all kind of intertwines, correct?
Completely intertwines, and
Okay.
everything, the elongated skull behind me is completely related, in my opinion, to the UFO phenomenon. They are connected. Everything is connected. And really it goes back to the Genesis 3:15 narrative. And if a person reads that and doesn't understand what they're reading and doesn't come to grips with it and doesn't spend time there, and I mean spend time there, then the rest of the biblical narrative escapes. And people get caught in little estuaries or little, pools over here or this over that. The whole thrust of the narrative, the biblical prophetic narrative, is the seed war. And my hat is off to Gary Stearman, who lectured on this at the Nephilim Mounds Conference years ago and blew Russ Dizdar, Chief Joseph Riverwind, Fritz Zimmerman, and myself completely out of the water, because what he presented was something that we've all read, but we didn't get the severity of it. We didn't understand the depth of it. And Gary so now it's like it's in my wheelhouse. I start pretty much all my presentations on the UFO phenomena way back at Genesis 3:15. There's a scenario, there's a vignette, there's a scene where you've got the pre-incarnate Christ talking to the dragon and talking to Adam and Eve, the two first humans. And he says to the dragon, your seed will be at enmity, at war with the seed of the woman. The one coming from the woman will crush your head. You will bruise his heel. Wait a minute. Seed is offspring. You're trying to tell me the offspring of the dragon will be at war with the offspring of the woman? Exactly. Yes, absolutely. In fact, we have a book, How Nephilim Returned After the Flood, that gets into all this. I mean, really gets into it. And a lot of great people came in on it. Mondo Gonzalez, Dr. Mark Kahn, Dr. Ken Johnson, Dr. Douglas Hamp, Sonda Allison. We had a lot of people, write like a chapter or just even a couple of pages, because it's that important. Because there are people out there trying to tell us that, well, it's like maybe one of the Nephilim was really Ham's wife. Yeah, that's it. That's a ticket. So a Nephilim female carrying a Nephilim gene or however got on the ark, Noah's ark. We're not buying that for a second. So, the Most High God's going to wipe out the entire planet except for 8 people and somehow allow a female who's carrying a Nephilim gene. Don't you think Noah would have known it? Don't you think Ham would have known it? The whole thing is just a straw man argument, in my opinion. There's absolutely no exegesis. Let me back up. There's no scriptural reference for that at all. It just doesn't exist. What we do see is the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. And it tells you exactly what's also afterward. 10 minutes after the Nephilim were on the earth, an hour, a day, a week, a month, 10 years, 1,000 years, we're not told, but it's afterward. And what do we see? When they go into the promised land, who's there? The Nephilim tribes. And they're all different, in my opinion, different genetic characteristics that are there in the Levant.
So within the next probably, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, maybe, I want to focus UFOs, the ET deception, the UAPs, but and then we'll try to tie it in. I know you're going to discuss some of the Nephilim. You have to, because it all intertwines. I understand that, but I want to try to. We'll end.
Sure. No, let's go right to that's fine.
But so back in 2017, I guess, who is behind this deception, and why is the government talking about these UAPs being a threat? Before all this UAP nonsense, the UFO community would talk about how the government would stage either some type of blue beam technology and either present
Right.
extraterrestrials as the saviors of the human race, or they would present them as a malevolent force that comes here to annihilate all of us. So, since all of
Yeah.
this UAP nonsense, it seems like the government is sticking to the threat card. However, they haven't came out and stated that they are ET in origin yet, just unidentified. Will the next card be, LA, that the government uses some type of blue beam false flag to show either an alien threat, and if so, will that be the deception? If none of these is true, then what do you think will be the next card, LA?
I think the next card will not be played by the government. The government has no control over these things. And never forget that. The government has no control, zero control. They move and do what they want to do, what their agenda is. They could care less about the governments of the world. Do they give us that quid pro quo, that little, you give me access to your population, I'll give you some tinker toys to play with? Oh yeah. And the government laps that up. The government, first of all, has no idea how to stop them. They can't stop them. They can't. They don't know how to do that, in my opinion. These things shoot away at greater than Mach 3, which is 3 times the speed of sound. And it's like Mach 3 is really fast, like 22,300 miles an hour plus.
Something like that.
You're
Yeah.
going like that. UFO just goes right to the guy's wing and then speeds away. How is possible? In our second film on UFOs, I remember Francisco Carrera, head of Exopolitics Portugal, we sit down and we're talking, shop to shop. It's like, we're just talking shop. Francisco, like myself, we've been immersed in this for decades. So we're talking about, what about that rocket launch where the UFO appears to the rocket? And Francisco, yeah. So the rocket's going really, really fast, right? And the UFO just goes like this.
Shoots a beam at it.
Shoots a beam at it, knocks it out of the air. I mean, they do what they want to do. It's their agenda. And the way they present themselves, we may have a blue beam thing here. I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. But when they present themselves, they will say this, that ET created all life on this planet. Stop right there. The entire planet runs on Darwinian paradigm, the Darwinian theory, in academia and in the scientific community. Darwinism is sacrosanct. That you're either a Darwinist or good luck trying to find a job. Now, if you're a closet Christian, you just keep your Christianity to yourself, but you go along with the Darwinian paradigm if you want to get promoted. Oh yeah, we just evolved from absolutely nothing. That makes perfect sense to me. Yep, that's how it works. Mm-hmm.
I look at some of these people out there, LA, and it looks like they straight up came from chimps, man, because they are so stupid. They are so stupid and just so brain drained, mind controlled. You know what I mean? It makes no sense.
Oh, I mean, I get that, but to the point, it's like the Darwinian paradigm is the springboard for the Great Deception. Because if evolution didn't create the DNA double helix of life, then who did? And that's why it's so important when Ben Stein sits down with Richard Dawkins and says, well, where do you think the first self-replicating molecule came from? And Dawkins goes, well, we don't know. No one knows. No, and he's sort of, no one knows. How dare you ask me that question, you idiot? Well, you don't know, do you? But you're going to tell us that all of it's just evolved. And then Stein throws him an intellectual lifeline. Well, how do you think it happened? And Dawkins goes, well, I suppose it could have happened something like this. Well, in a galaxy far, far away, a group of aliens somehow created us and seeded us through it's just like, you just sit there and just kind of, you're making this up. The bottom line is, if you're intellectually honest, you have no idea of what this is or where we're in it. Nobody does, myself included. So we can either believe that somehow magically over billions of years, the complexity of the deoxyribonucleic double helix of life, the spiral of life, somehow just poof, it happened, or we can believe that there's a creator that spoke everything into existence. What do I believe? This is what I believe right here. That he spoke everything into existence. Because that prophetic thread from Genesis to Revelation is a signature by someone outside space and time as we know it. It's a signature. A 14-year-old kid can pick it up and kind of go, something's going on. Because whoever this is calling out the future and does so with great specificity. And that's why there's no other book like it. And, people go, oh, yeah, I read the Bible. I go to church twice a year. Yeah. Jesus stuff, whatever. And it's like, well, are you aware of the prophecies? Well, no, not really. Well, then you really haven't read it. Well, and that's the deal. Most people, I love the characters that pop out, but most people have no idea of what's in those pages. They don't understand that thread of prophetic literature from Genesis to Revelation, calling out events. Again, just think about this. It says that in the latter days, in the end times, I will gather Israel from the mountains of the earth, from the four corners of the earth, and reestablish them in their ancient homeland. Well, that's absurd, because we all know that in AD 70, the Romans came down, wiped everybody out, destroyed Jerusalem, people went off into captivity, and the Jews were dispersed. Enter the Holocaust at the end of World War II. And there's this exodus into Israel from all over Europe and all over the Middle East. And out one vote, Russia voted for it, go figure. And the United Nations votes Israel as a sovereign nation. I mean, it's like, what? It's kind of like over here, it would be like, the Manhattan Indians going, yeah, we've had it up to here now. We're going to come and take over Manhattan. It's going to happen next Tuesday. So set your watch, buddy. It's not going to happen. And, Israel, and the other thing, the latter rain was withheld from Israel for almost 2,000 years. You couldn't grow anything there. That's why when Mark Twain goes over and he writes, it's a wasteland. It was a wasteland. And the Israelis came in, the Jews came in, they bought up the swampland, they started to drain the swamps, and then, whoa, miracle upon miracle, the latter rain, which hadn't happened in almost 2,000 years, begins to fall. Although that's just coincidence, or is that the hand of God? Of course, it's the hand of God. And this is where we are. But wait, it gets better. Daniel, almost 2,500 years ago, the prophecy is written that says, hey, Dan, seal up the words in this book. And then it says something which is really startling. Seal up the words. Everything is sealed until the time of the end. And then it gives us this little, what I call a prophetic bone. 2,500 years ago, it says this: men will run to and fro over the face of the earth, and knowledge will increase. Well, I mean, from 2,500 years until the modern era, it's flatline. Nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, you get the goofy Wright brothers with some bicycle parts, some canvas, and it's Kitty Hawk, baby. And they're taking off, and off they go. And the rest is history. And now knowledge increases every 6 months exponentially. Are we in the days of Daniel? Boy, we are. Now it says something even more profound. And this is to your point about abductions and UFOs. It says something that's so cryptic, but it's right there in your face. And remember, it's saying the angel tells Daniel, seal up the words in this book until the time of the end. No one will understand it. We understand it now. When I read this, I'm ready to come out of my skin, because it says something in the book of Daniel. And it says this: their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Wait a minute. Whoa. Who are they? Who are they? Can't be the seed of men. Certainly isn't a chimpanzee, last time I checked. So it only is, it's one guy. It's one guy. It's the seed of the dragon. Going right back to Genesis 3:15, which is why if we don't get the exegesis to that correct, when we get to the Daniel passage, we're going, oh, who the heck are they? I'll tell you who they are. It's the same thing as the seed of the dragon. And guess what we get? We have hybrids walking amongst us. I just gave you one example. So we know from prophecy that there's going to be a mingling of the seed. It's exactly where we are. In part 4, which, part 3 is about to be released in our ongoing UFO series. We call it Close Encounters. And there's some really amazing testimonies. But part 4 deals with the abductions. And Al Matthews comes on the record. Emil comes on the record. Al Matthews was in our first film, talking about the hybrid entity that he was with. Al was a lifelong abductee. Emil was taken. He was implanted. We took out the implant in our Watchers series. Okay? Karen comes on the record. Karen is a lifelong abductee, but she stopped it. She got rid of it, but she had 3 children by them. 3 children. She's impregnated 3 different times. I show a clip, about a 2-minute clip at the end of 3 to preface what 4 is going to be like. It's unbelievable. I mean, the pain on her face, the emotion when she's talking about going to her OBGYN and, you're my doctor. You knew I was pregnant. And there's no trace of the fetus. There's no fetal tissue. There's nothing. There's no bleeding. They just come and abducted her. And that wasn't the first time. And that wasn't the first time she was impregnated by them. And I just did, as a book from, I guess it's from the 90s. It's about this thick. It's a paperback. So it's like, the print's like really dinky. You got to read it with a magnifying glass almost. But it's by Dr. David Jacobs, and it talks about the alien abduction phenomenon. And, Jacobs just writes that with all his heart, he wished it wasn't true. That would be the happiest day in his life if all this research wasn't true. But he knows that it is. He has a totally different worldview than I do. He believes they're extraterrestrial. I believe they're interdimensional entities. By the way, Jacques Vallée at one time held that position. I haven't talked to him, so I have no idea whether he still holds that they were interdimensional.
I think he does. He does.
Yeah, I do too. But J. Allen Hynek held to that they were interdimensional entities. That's who they were.
Explain to those like interdimensional. What do you mean like, okay, most of us understand interdimensional, but where are they coming from? Like an other type of dimensional plane, like maybe the 4th, 5th dimension, or some type of void, or could it be purgatory? You know what I mean? If these ETs are demonic in nature, are they? And that's something else I meant to ask you. Are all of them? Because I don't think that all of them would be technically demonic in nature. I believe there are a lot of ETs that have maybe malevolent agendas, but it's hard to think that all life forms out there in the universe is strictly malevolent and sinister. But I'm not the kind that's a new agey person that they're coming here to save us and let's sing all kumbaya, out in the wind. I'm not that person, but I believe it's you got two factions out there. Now it seems like the ones that's doing the abductions, the Greys and maybe other races. Yes, I believe that they are demonic, but there's so many races out. But anyways, I'm rambling, but give me your thoughts about that, about where do these interdimensional beings and or craft come from, and are all ETs demonic in nature?
Well, let's try to walk through it. Nobody knows what this is or where we are in it.
Your gut.
Nobody.
Your gut.
Nobody knows where we are. Nobody knows what this is. If the universe is analogous to the United States of America, is planet Earth in Duluth, Dallas, Fort Worth, New York City, Los Angeles, nobody knows. Nobody knows what this is or how it got here or what we're doing in it. And nobody has a clue. So you get everybody going like, well, there's a gazillion, galaxies out there. Surely there's got to be life. The plurality of worlds, by golly. How small-minded thinking of us to imagine that we're the only people in the universe. And I get that. Okay, fine.
The Earth could be flat.
Ever.
The Earth could be flat.
The other one, right? Yeah. The other one is this, Fermi's paradox. And Fermi's paradox states that, if the universe is teeming with life, well, why haven't we heard from these people? Where are they? And of course, the ancient astronaut theorists will go, well, they built the Great Pyramids. They did this, they did that. Not so fast. That's conjecture. And my conjecture is that it's not ET, they're interdimensional entities coming from a lower astral through gateways, through portals into this dimension. And they're the ones that are handing down the knowledge. How do we know this? The book of Enoch, not part of the biblical canon, but you know what? And this is what's so funny. The Ethiopian Bible, the book of Enoch precedes the book of Genesis and their Bible. So which Bible do you go with? Well, most over here in the West would go with the King James. But the Catholics have their Bible, the Greek Orthodox have their Bible. They're very, very close, very close. But the Ethiopian Bible has the book of Enoch, which precedes Enoch 1, precedes the book of Genesis. Why? They believe it's canon. I necessarily don't, but I will tell you this. If you want to study a book that amplifies the Genesis 6 narrative, that's the book to read. Just as it's, and people go, well, it's not in the Bible. Well, okay, I get that. But when you read the Bible, which is a guidebook of a supernatural, in my opinion, and we get the passages that state, isn't this all written in the book of Jasher? Oh, okay. In other words, the author in that particular book is saying, if you want to find out more, read the book of Jasher. It's all there. Oh, okay. I'll just go and read the book of Jasher. No worries. Oh, look, it's amplifying what I just read. Wow, that's really cool. That's how the book of Enoch should be treated. Aren't these things written in the book of Enoch? Of course, that's not in there. No one said that. But the book of Enoch amplifies this and talks about these fallen angelic entities, which come down and hand mankind knowledge. They have technology and knowledge. They show mankind primitive weapon making. And this is the protocols of this ongoing war that's been taking place literally for millennia. Turn up the air conditioner a little bit. We're not privy to. We're not privy to. We don't get it. We get little bits of information. We get prophecies which tell us this is going to happen, but we're not privy to the protocols of the war. But in my opinion, look, when these entities come and they get you or me, God forbid, when they take someone, that's a better way of saying it. When they take someone, they manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that defy our physics. People are levitated off the bed, they're flown through the window or up through the ceiling. How many times have I heard this? Too many to count. Every abductee I've ever talked to. Well, yeah, this time we went up through the wall. How's it possible? We went up through the ceiling. How is it possible? Yeah, I got to the window and I said, are they going to open the window? No, they don't open the window. Through we go. So these entities manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. But this is why I think it's angelic, fallen angelic. So to your point, are they all malevolent? Well, we don't know where we are. And certainly if life is teeming in the universe, then why haven't we seen it? Where are the ambassadors going, greetings, Cloton? It's just like, it's not there. It's just, everybody's really quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there's something that holds the phenomenon back. It's always in the cover of darkness. It's always this cat and mouse game. They show up, they blip away. They show up, they blip over to the other side. I mean, what's going on here? Why do you have to take a 5-year-old boy and implant them? That's Emil, who we took the implant out 40 years later. That's almost 10 years ago. Why do you have to implant a woman and not only implant her, then you get her pregnant and then you take the baby? And I've said this in conferences. How many of you think that that's okay? Raise your hand. How many of you out there? Not a hand goes up. Not a hand goes up. Because all of us know that it's not okay to do that. It's not okay. Well, they're just beyond our way. Oh, that's the Stockholm syndrome. That's the, you're throwing your humanity and what you know to be right or wrong right out the window. Well, they're just above our wing, right? Nonsense. You do that, you throw away your intellect, you throw away your humanity, then it's the Stockholm syndrome. There's a book out, I won't tell you who it's by, but it's by this woman who's a lifelong abductee, and she's telling us how great ET is. She was been abducted since she's a little girl. She now flies the ship, and all this other stuff. And she now counsels abductees aboard the ship, trying to get them to calm down. And then she tells us that all the abductees give their consent. Nonsense. No one's giving their consent. They're all screaming, thrashing about, terrified out of their minds. That's not consent. Stockholm syndrome, anyone? Abso-stinking-lutely all day long.
I grew up, live in Louisiana, grew up in the Bible Belt. I'm very spiritual, not the kind of new age spiritual, don't get me wrong. But it's no later discussion. But whenever you have these people that come forward and say that they're here to save us, and they're basically making another religion. You know what I mean? And that's wrong.
We are. I
That's wrong.
agree.
That's wrong. And now I'm sure there are good guys out there. There's bad guys also. And I believe most of what's going on here are the malevolent kind.
Evil.
I would say
Yeah,
yes. And I want to switch it's all a spider web, LA. But for the next 30 minutes, we just keep on with this discussion. And is it possible? I wrote this down earlier actually. I was thinking about this at work. And then I got home, wrote it down. So is it possible that the reason, or is it possible that the Smithsonian, the Vatican, and other alphabet agencies around the world are keeping this type of material, let's say the bloodlines, the Nephilim, secret and covered up, is because they are possibly utilizing the Nephilim bloodline through transgenics to create a type of Nephilim hybrid. And if you want to get dark about it, LA, maybe this type of Nazi occult ideology is the reason why there are so many kids and people going missing each year, because they are using these people and their satanic and Luciferian experiments to help bring forward this rise of the new Nephilim army. What do you
We
think?
know that the Nazis were really big on genetic manipulation, even though they really didn't know how to do it back then. You know, they
Yeah.
tried. They didn't know about DNA. So because they didn't know about DNA, they were breeding and trying to backbreed that way. They were obsessed with it. Lebensborn is a perfect example. My good battle buddy and friend, the late Russ Dizdar, used to talk about Lebensborn, which was the Nazi breeding program where they were trying to breed the super soldier. That's what they were trying to do. They were also involved in satanic rituals. When you go to, and Russ was there, when you go to Vedelberg's castle, and that was, the Black Sun and the hidden chambers and the rooms and the crystal skulls of the skulls, the elongated skulls all around there that were probably in. That's conjecture on my part, but both Russ and I believe that these skulls are not human, that they are genetic manipulation. That skull behind me is about 2,000 years old. It's from Peru, and there's genetic manipulation all through that. How do we know that? If you go to our website, you can go to onthetrailwithla.com, onthetrailwithla.com. All of our on the trail stuff is there. My main website, lamarzulli.net, you can go there, or you can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net and download number 6. Number 6 is the DNA. And we've got doctors, surgeons, medical professionals, anthropologists, archaeologists, chiropractors, optometrists coming on the record and stating that this guy right there is not a human being. It's not human. There's some sort of genetic, what we're looking at is genetic inbreeding, genetic tampering that is going on there. And guess what? Guess who tells us all about that? Right there. That's where it's all from. That's why the guidebook of a supernatural is the guidebook of a supernatural. People call it the Bible, but what it really is the guidebook of a supernatural. Because without it, you'll never know the truth. Number one, you just won't. Without that as the basis, the anchor, you can spin your wheels till the cows come home, and you'll never get there. And that's why New Ages are all over the map. That's why people go down and they see the skulls and, well, it's got to be ancient aliens. And, well, who built Machu Picchu? Well, who built, Sacsayhuaman or Teotihuacan? Oh, it's the aliens. It's the aliens. Not so fast. Not so fast.
It was this guy right here, LA.
Well, what is that guy? What is that guy
Daryl
really?
Sims, I tell you what, Daryl Sims, I've interviewed several times, once in person at the Skydancer UFO conference a few years ago and a couple months ago. But Daryl Sims, he states that they are hatched, cloned, and manufactured for the purpose. And I believe, I don't want to misquote him, but I believe they're hatched and cloned, manufactured here. Could that be the Nephilim or the bloodline of the Nephilim? hybrids or something that are, could these guys, if they are hatched, cloned, and manufactured here on Earth, maybe some underground base, we don't know. Could they be, I guess, the army for, or the pawns for the Nephilim, you know?
Well, the Nephilim, or the hybrid, is a hybrid entity. It's a Nephilim is the byproduct, the offspring of fallen angels and the women of earth, combining the seed, mingling the seed, like Daniel tells us, like Genesis 3:15 tells us. It's all about the seed, mingling that seed, creating a hybrid being. The grays, I believe, are genetically, they're constructs. And what's interesting, I was quoting the woman who was abducted very early and now flies the ship, and she's Stockholm syndrome, in my opinion, to the nines, and she's the centerpiece of a new book that came out. And I will, I'm not going to disparage it. I just have a different take. But she said, the very first couple of chapters, she talks about the grays and how they're manufactured. And I've been saying that for flipping years, that the grays are some sort of a biological construct. So the demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. The Nephilim are soulless. We have a soul. A human being is spirit, mind, body, and soul.
I believe
we have
that,
a soul. Okay, we have a soul. The grays are soulless. The Nephilim are soulless. So when they perished in the flood, and afterwards when they returned and they were wiped out, those spirits, the Book of Enoch tells us that they became the demonic spirits and they roamed the earth,
possessing people,
seeking something to do.
Possessing people. So
yeah, possessing. Yes,
and
exactly.
And Brooks Agnew, I've interviewed him in person, also face to face. And I just posted a little clip from that face to face interview we did a few years ago. He states something similar, that about the Nephilim, that the past 5,000 years, I believe he says 5,000 years, that some malevolent dark force. And I just took a clip, but you can watch the full interview, but he's talking about the Nephilim, though, that they have been, basically, to sum it all up, they've been behind every major event, for lack of a better term, and they are within the government. And for over the past 5,000 years, that there's been one guy, not one guy for 5,000 years, but one guy over the course of 5,000 years that has ruled this world. And I believe, I don't want to misquote him, but I believe he believes that they are possibly this disembodied spirit, possibly maybe the bloodline of the Nephilim.
Well, but if we examine what happened before 2000, 2,000 years ago, the entire planet was immersed in occultism. They worshiped these so-called gods that were everywhere. And many places, the old gods were still entrenched. Go to India for a perfect example. All right, they're entrenched there. But with the advent of Christianity, with the manifestation of the proto-evangelium, the seed of the woman, which was prophesied thousands of years ago. Of course, I'm talking about Jesus. When he shows up on the scene, everything changes. Everything changes. Here in the West, we are in a post-Christian world, but that promise happened 2,000 years ago, and he ended the dragon's kingdom. So you talk about one man that's been in charge. Well, that man behind the scenes, behind the curtain, is the dragon. Sauron is a perfect example of the dragon. That's who he is.
Just all right. Just like in Lord of the Rings, the eye. Yeah. Right.
That's who he is. And so he wields great power, but his kingdom was taken from him about 2,000 years ago. And that's why those of us who follow the prophetic literature believe that we're in a window of time where we're going to see the return of the king. And it's not fiction, it's the real deal. Because it's not supposed to be like this, number one. Number two, you can't fix this anymore. 20 years ago, I would say, well, we can fix it. You can't. Call me a pessimist, you can't fix this. It's over. What's going on a global level? Are you kidding me? We've gone over the cliff, and we're in free fall, and
I,
you can't fix it.
I, I forgot who quoted this or where it came from, LA, but you can't fix the world with the same minds that created the problem in the first place. I'm paraphrasing that. You know what I mean? Like, and these same people that's in politics and DC and that basically over the past, you got these lifetime politicians, that,
Politics.
yeah, over the past 20 to 30 to 40 years, or these families with, that go all the way back to the 19th century, you know, we're not going to solve the problem. And I get you, LA. Like, understand that I'm not a pessimist either. I'm not. I I like to. I'm very optimistic, but I like to. I hope for the best, but plan for the worst. But
That's Mel.
but I feel
Mel,
like
you're quoting you realize you're quoting Mel Brooks. That's it. We got what film it's in, but it's like,
I
hope for the
forgot.
best, expect the
I
worst. It's just
forgot.
hysterical.
But
It's great.
but I feel like we need a reality check for people. People's talking about wake everybody. You're not going to wake if if whenever the student asks, the teacher will come. You will not force people to wake up. You can't. To rather, with your case, with the scripture, or what's going on with the Nephilim, the bloodlines, the hybridization, UFOs, other conspiracies. You're not going to. You can help lead the way. You can plant seeds, but you can't force that seed overnight to turn into a tree. And I feel like what we need, and I'm not being pessimist, I feel like we need something. The past couple of years, I don't believe was it. Yeah, we saw some pushback. We saw it, but I feel like we need something more, something to. I'm not talking about to unite us to where somebody can take over and infiltrate us being united, and they're the mark of the beast. No, I mean unite us to where we're open. We see all the BS. We see everything, but you know what I mean, LA? I feel like something needs to happen where everybody just puts down that beer and shut off the football game and just like in the what's the TV show, the movie. I mean, it's mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. You know what I mean? But anyways, I'm rambling. Sometimes I do that, I but you have my brain ticking, LA. But I've heard theories and speculation that the Nephilim over the past couple thousand years have placed stargates around Earth. You've talked about it. I have a book somewhere. Forgot his name. The Nephilim Stargates. I forgot his name.
Tom Horn.
Tom Horn. Yeah. But and these same Nephilim were working alongside the deep state and leading. Well, are these same Nephilim that have been around past several thousand years? Are they behind the deep state leading up to 9/11 and the Nephilim behind the scenes using us and manipulating the events that led us to invade Iraq because they wanted help retrieving a lost Stargate and other ancient technologies? And I got it right here in my notes. But yeah, anyways, what's your thoughts on that? Is that one of the reasons why we went into Iraq? Like, we created that event. I hate to say that name. I don't want to be banned, but but what's your thoughts on Stargates around the world? And if it's true, who do you think placed those Stargates there? And was that one of the main reasons, culprits, why we?
I call it fallen angel technology, Nephilim architecture. It's global. It's everywhere. When you go to a place like Corral, let's start there, which is in Peru, which is the oldest city in the Americas. It's over 5,000 years old. And I've been there, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. So you get there and you go, okay, there's a pile of bricks. The pyramids were step pyramids. The plaza is level. The building project's unbelievable. And you go, well, where's the pre-existing culture? There is none. Doesn't exist. There is no pre-existing culture. It just, Michael, it just comes up out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. There's advanced mathematics. There's geometry. There's the knowledge of a lunar precession, the 18.5-year metonic cycle. There's building and construction techniques that are thousands of years ahead of their time. How was it done? How was it done? And then here's the kicker. It all just goes away. It all just disappears. Every single site on this planet has the same exact signature. They show up, they're worshipped as gods, just disappears. Teotihuacan in Mexico, not that old. Pyramid of the Sun, Pyramid of the Moon, no pre-existing culture. The Pyramid of the Sun is the largest pyramid on the planet. The base is the largest pyramid on the planet. The height is not as high as the Great Pyramid of Giza, but it's actually wider. The base is bigger than the Great Pyramid at Giza. Where does it come from? And why is it that archaeologists call them the Teotihuacanos? They have no idea who they were. They make up a name. The city of the gods. That's what it was. Just like Corral, they give you the same argument. Well, they just assimilated into the local population. You don't know that. You're just making that up. You just assume that that's what happened, but you don't know that. So why is that the party line? Teotihuacan, they just disappear. Chaco Canyon, knowledge of the 18.5-year lunar cycle. And those kivas in Chaco Canyon look identical to the one that we saw down in Corral, Peru, thousands of miles away, thousands of years before. Same architect? You tell me. Knowledge of the precession, winter solstice, summer solstice, the equinoxes, it's all there. And guess what? There was cannibalism and human sacrifice in Chaco Canyon. Of course, you can't talk about that. We don't want to talk about that, but it happened. And there's strong evidence showing that. And then guess what happens? Just like Teotihuacan and Corral, they all just go away. No one happened. No one knows. Then you go to the mounds all through the Americas, from Ohio and actually Canada all the way down the Mississippi. They call them the Mississippian. They call them the Hopewell, the Adena, and they build these incredible mounds. And when you go over to England, you can go to Salisbury Mound, and you stand there and you go, am I in Ohio or someplace else? You're someplace else. And there's that Great Circle Mound in Ohio, which looks almost exactly like the Great Circle Mound in Ohio, in Nurkahaya. And guess what? They just disappear. And the archaeologists go, well, we don't even really know what these people call themselves, but we're going to tell you all about it. I mean, how intellectually dishonest is that, in my opinion? If you don't even know what they call themselves, how can you tell us with any certainty what's going on? You don't know. You don't flipping know. Quit lying to us, for crying out loud. Quit. Stop the lying. If you don't know, then you don't know. You have no idea who built these things. None. And they knew about the 18.5-year lunar cycle. Native Americans didn't know that, number one. Native Americans did not have geometry or trigonometry. Guess what? When you go to the Newark Earth Mounds, 18.5-year metonic lunar cycle. And to show you how absurd that is, Michael, to show you how crazy that is, if we were to go, let me get my calculator.
Okay.
So you and I decide, LA, I really want to go out and check what's going on with the moon. Because something's going on. I know it's there. It seems to come up in a different place every night, and then it sets. So let's go and okay, Mike, you and I can do it. So we get out there. We got some steaks. We got some deer hide, tacked up, some charcoal, and we get out there. We pound some steaks in the ground. And we're looking at this thing and we're kind of going, it's pretty cool, right? We can figure this out, blah, 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 blah. And we put down 2 stakes where the moon comes up and the moon sets. And here's our vantage point right here. Stake number 1, stake number 2. We got 2 stakes. So we do this, all right? We have no idea of where we are in the cycle. Do we come down in year 5, in year 8, in year 20, not 20, in year 17? or the last year 18? We don't know. So we're just putting stakes up and we're trying to crunch the data. Here's the deal. So you have 18.6 times 365 equals 67. And then you got to multiply that. Let me just make sure my math is right. So you got 365, right? Times 2. So you got 730. You multiply that by 18.5, and you wind up with 13,505 stakes in the ground. But here's the deal, Michael. How do you crunch the data 4,000 years ago? How many buffalo hides, deer hides, and then you got to sit there and you got 13 fat. I think have we seen this one before? I don't know. The one over. How would you know? How would you even know? And that's why. And then you get the mathematics that are in there, complex geometry. If Native Americans didn't do it, then who did? Quit lying to us. Quit telling us it was the Hopewell Indians. And then they all just assimilated magically into the indigenous population. But that's not what the Native Americans tell us. They say that we don't know who built this. It was here when we got here. But see, once again, that the powers that be control the narrative. They control the narrative. And that's why you got people like me doing our films on the trail of the Nephilim. Go to the site, onthetrailwithla.com, onthetrailwithla.com. It'll blow your mind. There's 7 films on the trail. It'll blow your mind, guaranteed.
And we have a few more minutes left, and you're talking about the mounds here in North America. They're all over the world, but here in North America, I just interviewed a week ago. I haven't uploaded it yet. He's not really into this field that we are, and people that are probably listening, to the alternative, the truth seekers, and but he's a professor at LSU. His name's Brooks Elwood. You could look him up, Brooks Elwood, professor at LSU, Louisiana State University. LSU mounds oldest human-made structures in North America, study says, and Brooks Elwood is behind this study, saying that one of the mounds, it's a few of them, is that they dated 11,000 years ago. And I asked him, so did the Native Americans build them? And just like to what you said, I'm paraphrasing, but basically they don't know. The Native Americans really do not know. I'm paraphrasing, but just like you said, they don't know. I don't know if he said that they were already here. I try to get some speculation. Well, what is his gut? But he's a professor. He's not going to do that. But it was very interesting. But I guess and that's kind of adds credence to what you were just saying, LA. And just everybody listening, I will try to get that uploaded as soon as I can. But I guess we can probably end it off here, LA. So take your time. We have all heard the theory, if it is even a theory at all, that Earth is in quarantine and is a prison planet, and that the Van Allen belt acts as a deterrent from keeping us to explore space. If that is all true, that means that we never went to the moon and had other achievements in space. So if all that is true, could the quarantine prison planet Earth not necessarily be keeping us from exploring the stars, but to actually keep the Nephilim in a state of lockdown so that they can't leave? What's your thoughts on that, LA? And has any of your research corresponded in some way or another with that idea?
Well, again, I mean, this is for me, this is it. This is the guidebook of the supernatural. So I start here. And from that, we came up with this on the trail of the Nephilim. A lot of research. There's actually 3 books in one in this thing. What we've seen over and over again, everything goes back to the seed war. Everything. It all goes back to the seed of a dragon and the seed of the woman. It all goes, everything, that's the whole deal. The end game is we're not on a prison planet, because when the king returns, he rules here for 1,000 years. The kingdom of heaven is going to be here on this earth. Jesus will return, and not the E.T. Jesus, the real guy. The Shroud of Turin, and I usually have it on my desk, but I think I moved it someplace, or maybe not. But if I didn't, I will see if I have it here. No, I think I moved it. Yeah, I did. But when you look at the Shroud of Turin, and I call it God's calling card, in my opinion, it's evidence of the greatest event in all of history, because he triumphed over death. So the shroud is a linen cloth, about 13 feet wide, 13 and a half feet long, by about 3.5 feet wide. And it bears the frontal and dorsal image of a crucified man in repose, in rigor mortis. And the scourging shows that it was on both sides of the body and very, very severe, extremely severe. A section of his beard was definitely pulled out right below the eye. I mean, it tracks with the biblical record. No one has ever been able to duplicate anything that even remotely looks like the shroud. And the shroud bears this image, which no one knew was there. They knew there was an image there, but until Secondo Pio took the first photograph of the shroud, and when he developed the photograph, he about fell out of his chair, because what he saw was the face of a man who was obviously, in our opinion, I mean, it is Jesus. That's exactly who you're looking at. But he dropped the glass plate. He almost dropped the glass plate because he couldn't believe. I thought I had it.
I'll put a picture up for everybody to see.
Please.
Yeah, I will.
Because it's that important. Because what happened 2,000 years ago with the shroud, in my opinion, is forensic evidence of the greatest event in all of history. And I believe that God allowed it to be hidden away until the 20th century, and then Secondo Pio. And when you look at it, you kind of go, oh my gosh. So let me get this straight. A forger somehow would figure, like in the 15th century, that, well, they're going to figure out what a camera is, so we'll make a negative. So when they do it, then when they develop a negative, which is actually a positive, yeah, that's what we'll do. But it's not it. And the testing on the shroud, the carbon-14 dating, showed conclusively that it was skewed. They took it from a little corner of the shroud, which the poor Sisters of Clare did something called invisible weaving. So the whole carbon-14 dating is right out the window. It's an ancient artifact. It's God's calling card. And in my opinion, it shows us that's our hope, because he triumphed over death. Look, let me just end by saying this, Michael. There is a war. There's a cosmic chess match going on. It's spilling out. We're entering a time of darkness. Now is the time to get right with the guy who wrote this book. And it's real easy. You just ask him in. You just ask him in. That's all it is. We're not talking religion. We're talking relationship. I've been doing this for 42 years, and it never goes away, and it's profound. Thanks for having me on.
So, LA, what do you have coming up new? Any conferences this year or early next year?
I got a conference down in Houston.
I guess just go ahead and lay everything out for us with this final.
Yeah, okay. The last conference of the year will be at Yuba City. It's coming up not this weekend, but the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th in Yuba City, California. Derek Gilbert will be there, which will be great. I speak 3 times, so it's a lot of work, but I'm anxious to meet and greet everybody. It's going to be fun. And then we're off the rest of the year. Next one is in January, and that's down in Houston, Texas, to a small group of people. Yeah, Houston, Texas.
Okay, that's not too far from me. It's not Monroe, Louisiana. I went to Houston and interviewed Mike Barra, Daryl Sims, several others. I like to do that on the side, is interview everybody in person. But is it the Skydancer UFO conference, or are they renaming it to something else?
Conference. No, okay. I'll post it once they figure
I
it
got
out.
you.
And then episode 3 of our UFO film will be released by the end of the month, end of September. Number 4 is on abductions. Number 3 is called Close Encounters, like the film, because that's what it is. Testimonies of people that have had interactions with these things. 4, and look, the first 3 films is to get to the point where something's going on. The 4th film, we do a deep dive, and that's the abduction phenomenon. And I'll have that out before Christmas this year.
L.A. Marzulli, thank you very much. It was a treat, an honor, a privilege, my friend, and you have a good one.
You too. Thanks for having me on. Bye bye.